All right, welcome back to another episode of Metro Jiu Jitsu Podcast. I'm Coach David here with Coach Mo. How are you, Coach?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Thanks for having me again.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So we got some questions, and not to waste any time because there are quite a few of them. This is a good one. It's a common one. What age is too old? I'm too old to do jiu-jitsu. That's young guy stuff. What is that age to be too old? And then conversely, too young. What age is too young?
That's a good question. I would the school that you're choosing would better answer what age is too young or too old. The expectations of the instructors or what kind of curriculum they're running is going to really tell you how old is too young. Now, I personally believe being inside of a gym is a big accomplishment for children, and I understand that programming children on just in overall character development, physical development starts at such an early age. And so we start them at Metro Jiu-Jitsu at 5 years old. We've actually taken one little girl named Mia that started at, she's a soft 5. She literally just turned 5. And she's actually much more mature than some of our 6 and 7 year olds.
Yeah, but I would agree.
But you know what? For children starting as early, if you have to understand that the maturity level of different kids at even the same ages is going to be different. And I personally believe if a kid is actually inside of a gym and even running around and not necessarily taking a few minutes here to watch the instructor, a few minutes to do the technique, a few minutes to contribute back to the class as a group, I think that's okay because ultimately they are still getting familiar with being in an outside setting outside of their home, and they still could be getting learning how to communicate, contribute, and participate in a group setting, which is the first step to actually doing any organized sport.
Yeah.
You take baseball, football, or whatever. Even at 7, 8, 9 years old, some kids are actually they're not emotionally ready to do that. So I personally believe leave them on the field, leave them on the mat, as long as they're comfortable, they're not really causing a distraction. It's good for them to be around because they kind of have to feel their way around the instructor, around the school, and they're watching more than we think they're watching. So when we have their trust, they start to participate a little bit more.
Yeah, I agree.
And as far as how old, so me being 44 years old, I think the same example could actually be given for a 45, 50, 55, and 60 years old. Really, it's about martial arts at that age is just about doing something different. I think that. How many times have you spoke to somebody who's much older than you, much more experienced than you, and it said, "Oh my gosh, I have so much to learn."
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I just learned this big lesson.
Yeah.
And so I think that at later stages in life, it's not as much about the physical. It's about just doing something that can give you more, not just physical, but emotional and mental longevity.
Yeah.
So, and strengthening up the mind as well as the body.
Yeah, I think that's a common misconception a lot with people. They either A, they don't know anything about jiu-jitsu, or B, it's synonymous with the UFC. Yeah. And so they're here. Oh, I'm not a cage fighter, bro. So, I was asked that today. I was like, so have you ever? I always joke, I'm too pretty to fight in the cage. This is the moneymaker. but yeah, and so they associate it with just cage fighters, UFC.
Yeah.
And they don't realize that it's like an automobile.
Yeah.
You control the gas pedal. You can go as fast or as slow as you want. You can be in the left lane in the Autobahn, and you can do that, or you can do a Sunday drive. And that's really up to you.
It's interesting you say that. We had a member sign up a couple months ago, and he actually came in one time. Really, really nice guy. He was actually in pretty good shape. He was in his late 40s. Mm-hmm. He was almost 50 years old. And he said, I was thinking about this for a while. I explained to him some of our programs and how we run our classes. And he came to one class. Mm-hmm. And because at 49 years old, being in pretty good shape mm-hmm. and really taking care of his body over the years, he felt good enough that day to say, I'm going to test myself.
Yeah.
And he really, I think he exerted a little bit more energy than he probably should have.
Sure.
And
I have no idea what that feels like.
Right. So what happened was, this really nice guy, he didn't show up for a whole nother month. Actually, a month and a half. And then he came in the other day and said, "Hey, I just, I wanted to let you know I'm going to cancel my membership." And I said, great, it's not a problem. Just, what happened? And he reminded me he had only been to one class, and that one class that he came to, he was sore for 2 weeks afterwards.
Jeez.
Yeah. So, ultimately, I think something like that is the owner's responsibility, and the instructor's responsibility is to really remind and control how much physical output somebody gives as they're just starting their martial arts journey. Oh, yeah. But we agreed that it's going to be best for him to finish out this month and maybe take a different approach and just getting a little bit more exposure to how the moves work versus mm-hmm. sparring.
Yeah.
Because learning the moves and sparring are two completely different.
Completely.
Yeah, it's different. So sparring, you're not learning anything. It's like fight or flight. You're learning what your body knows in the times of stress and trauma. And for somebody new, they really don't know anything. So they're going to their natural movements, which are completely against their own natural movements for somebody who knows Jiu Jitsu. So,
yeah, that's a great point. Well, which leads me to my next question. What type of shape do you need to be in to start Jiu Jitsu? Should you wait till you're benching 300 and got 6% body fat to get in here?
Well, there's actually a shirt that we want to make, and it says, "Attention, all bodybuilders, weights don't hit back."
Yeah. hey, bro, weights don't hit back.
But no, actually, you don't have to be in good shape, and I actually prefer the worse shape that somebody is in, the more room that they have to grow, and the more improvements they could see.
Yeah.
In the shorter amount, in the least amount of time. So, stretching is a really big thing for me mm-hmm. personally. Stretching and yoga. So, you don't have to be in good shape. You just have to want to try something different. Yeah. This ultimately is just using your body to do something different than you've ever done before. So, no. And I'm actually against weightlifting when you are training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I'd say 3 times a week. Mm-hmm. If you're training 3 times a week, I actually advise against more than lifting maybe 1.5 times a week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know that's... I hear that example a lot, and again, it goes to that stigma of they hear they hear jiu-jitsu. If they know what it is, they think UFC, and it's like, to me, it's so backwards. It's like you'll never hear anybody. You won't hear one person say, "I'm going to wait till I'm in better shape to start working out."
Yeah.
No, they start working out to get in better shape.
And I think a lot of people are afraid of that, that physical being challenged or challenge somebody else physically. It's almost like people want to prepare themselves for that.
Oh, I agree.
"Quote unquote" fight.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point. And that's a great point. It's a lot more mental preparation than physical. I mean, it is physical, but it goes back to that gas pedal, that throttle that you control.
And you know what? that throttle is basically learning how to be relaxed.
Yeah.
If you get in a car accident, when you don't expect it, your body, and that happens, usually we tensen up and we tighten up, and that stiffness all over the body really creates pressure and tension, and it's like freezing your body into an ice block, and if it runs into anything, it's going to crack. Yeah. So learning how to really relax the body is the first step, and what I believe we should all do when doing any kind of sports, for that matter.
So we offer, we guarantee to bully-proof kids in 6 months. Some might say that's it's just a sales pitch. It's not possible. You and I know it's very not only possible but routine. Yeah. So how can we do that, or how can we do that through jiu-jitsu?
So I know that question came in. Can you clarify that for our listeners?
Yeah, I mean, so it sounds unrealistic, too good to be true. Johnny's been bullied for 4 years, 5 years. Honestly, not almost verbatim. They just stay in the bathroom. They don't even want to go out in social settings because they're so introverted and I guess victimized.
Yeah.
How are you going to turn that around in 6 months?
Good question. We're going to, look, I'll explain it this way. Let's go back maybe 1,000, 1,500, I don't know, 2,000 years ago. I don't even know what type of structures were around back then, but when a man or woman wanted to eat, they had to go out and learn to hunt. They had to go out and hunt for their food, yeah. Right? So, they would get up, they would go out, put their bow and arrow on, or whatever it is they're using, and they would go out in the woods, they would stalk their prey, and look for whatever animal that they're hunting. It would be a hunt. They would identify their prey, stalk it, bam, they'd kill their prey. They'd bring it back to their village or wherever they're going, and at that time they would prepare and eat it and enjoy the fruits of their really hard work. Mm-hmm. So imagine 1,500 years ago or 2,000 years ago that we're living, where a man or a woman goes out to hunt, and so they stalk their prey and they're walking through the forest or jungle or whatever it is, and they find a deer or they find a little rabbit, and they go to pull their arrow back, and it's really quiet, and the prey looks up at them, and the prey looks up at the hunter, and the hunter looks at the prey, and the prey just lays down and says, okay, you caught me. So he doesn't even have to pull the trigger. He just walks over, takes it back to the village or wherever they're going, and he enjoys his feast. Imagine if that's how we lived our life, where we did not have to hunt, and we did not have to work for work for our food, or work for money. So going back to the bully proof, we teach kids how to work towards specific goals, and we teach them how to do that through very specific and targeted physical exercises, and very, very specific targeted contribution from one community member to another. We also teach them that as other kids are quote-unquote hunting on the mat, learning how to work physical movements on the mat, that how to support another kid. We teach them how to support the fact that this hunt, this physical challenge, this physical fitness program, curriculum that we put in place is not an easy one. And we teach them what to expect along the way. We teach them that this physical fitness journey is a very, very challenging one. And we teach them how to be very, very comfortable when they're uncomfortable. And more importantly, I believe we teach them how to be, how to expect and embrace doing something that's very, very hard, very challenging, like walking up a mountain.
Yeah. And that's yeah, and just to kind of piggyback off that with one comment is because that's where they're going. They're 6 years old, and that's why no one wants a 26-year-old. They can kind of accept that mentality, that mindset from a 6-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
It's childish.
Mm-hmm.
It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable when they're 26. So
right.
Translating that to, look, this is what you have to be prepared for.
And you know what? It's really, you're right, and it's really. I mean, to simplify that answer, it's teaching kids how to work hard at an early age.
Yeah.
And it's teaching kids how to work hard in a group and understand what working hard looks like and what outworking somebody looks like.
Yeah.
So it's that's probably a little bit of maybe it's an aggressive approach or answer, but in my mind, we have to teach young girls and boys how to be hunters. We have to teach them what it's like to stalk your prey,
mm-hmm.
Or really stalk your goals.
Yeah.
Because that hunt for an animal or for food is really about a hunt for something that you want.
Mm-hmm.
And usually getting something that's worthwhile, something that you want, is not easy.
No, of course. Yeah.
It's not an easy...
This is a good question for you. So you're, obviously you're very athletic. You've what was the earliest you started doing sports, like any type of organized sport?
My earliest two memories are, oh gosh, I was single digits.
Okay.
Definitely
all
under
right.
10.
So, okay. Yeah. You and I wouldn't have got along if we were in contemporaries, but so you're an athlete. You've tons of sports, basketball, football. Not only jiu-jitsu, but you've also have a career in other martial arts, taekwondo, things like that.
Yeah.
Question came in. Well, jiu-jitsu. How is jiu-jitsu different? The benefits that jiu-jitsu offers, team building, things like that. All of this disciplines, respect. Isn't it? It's just another team sport. It's just some people find it in football and soccer. You guys teach jiu-jitsu. It's the same thing, right?
Wrong. Wrong. Absolutely wrong. So, I believe one of the biggest problems, and I had this today with one of my children in a soccer game, is team sports are about winning.
Yeah.
Okay. You're gonna hear again and again and again about development, character development, developing the player, make sure they're getting better. By default, I think that's going to happen. And I've coached for many, many years.
Yeah.
I've been a coach.
Yeah.
I've coached at different platforms. I've coached children, middle-aged kids, and adults. And it's really, really sad because a football team, a basketball team, a hockey team, which I've been on, they have to, they practice, and the practices are usually like maybe an hour. If it's a little bit more, there's a warm-up, there's drop-offs, there's pickups. So, the hour the time that is spent preparing kids for any of these sports is not enough to really develop the kids. It's really, really not. Mm-hmm. So what happens is, in all of these sports, the coaches have to take the best kids or the ones that are more developed at the time in the game and try to win the game. Mm. So that parallel between martial arts is completely opposite. We focus on one single thing, and that's developing each and every single student. On a basketball court, we all know one or two kids really stick out.
Yeah.
So in the game, what we have to do is do our best to get the ball to them, to work the game around them, not substitute them in, not substitute them out. And with our at Metro Jiu-Jitsu, and I believe in martial arts in general, it's not like that. You can't focus on one person if you do. No, if you do, you're creating what we call is like an Elvis syndrome.
Yeah.
So when everything revolves around Elvis, and actually, and that is a revolving around Elvis is it's like a little saying that I made up where if you focus on one person instead of one community, when that student or player is there, there's lights, it's bright, it's loud, there's activity.
And the concert's on.
Oh, the concert's on. You know, Elvis is in the building. It's like, oh, look, all the lights and shining is on that one student. So, but when that student leaves the building or that team, guess what? It goes quiet.
Yeah. So. And how many times have we seen that? You know, it's a huge thing. You get these. Things change. You know, people. Not only kids move, adults move, life happens, and then for one thing or another, that all of that star athlete, that all of the coach's effort and time, and the others can see it too.
Yeah.
So now you've got a culture of partiality and favoritism that all the others can see, and they're like, okay, well, clearly that's what they're focused on. I'm just kind of here to, watching the show.
Yeah.
That's you hit the nail on the head there.
And you know what? Like I said, all parents see it, and the truth of the fact is that when they have that player or two that are really good, you know, the parents want the team to win, so they're complaining if they don't winning. They're not winning, and they're also complaining if their parents are not, if the coaches are not including their kids inside the game. And every single listener out there who has had their children play any organized sports outside of martial arts know that. So, you know, I think the big difference is we focus on development.
Yeah.
So you take a football team, I'll just explain it real quick, or a basketball team. Imagine if win or lose, you know, we know what we're working on during the practices. And even then, they're going to focus more on the Elvis kid or two. But imagine during the practices, if we just focused on fundamentals. Imagine if that translated to the game. When the kids had a game, they did the exact same thing. And they were playing basketball, and every time the ball went up or a touchdown was scored, there was literally no scoreboard. Think about that. There's no scoreboard, and there was just a running clock. So it doesn't matter who scored. It only mattered that they're looking for specific fundamentals throughout the games. Yeah. And how do you think that would change sports? It would completely transform the development of children. And basically that factor right there, that example right there is what we do. It's focusing on the fundamentals and focusing on building the students, not focusing on winning.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right, Coach. Well, that's all the questions I've got for you on this episode. Is there anything that you want to add, and maybe something that's been on your mind that you want to add to these to piggyback off of, or just throw in before we close up?
No, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Thanks for all the feedback. I don't know how much is showing out there, but we've really gotten. This is just a second podcast. We're really excited to keep it going, but we've gotten a bunch of support already. So I appreciate it, and thanks again for having me.
Yes, sir.